Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes. Once again, I'm joined by Anthony Haggerty, JP Mason and Lawrence Connolly to discuss the latest Glasgow derby. It finished 1-1. I'll come to you first, Anthony Haggerty. You started off the day by giving us a speech. It was a speech by Donny Tomato, or is it D'Amato? And were Celtic up for it as much as you would hope? Was it a performance that gives you any kind of hope? What was your thoughts about that overall?
No, absolutely not. I don't know what you have to do to raise this Celtic team to be better than ordinary, but they just, both sides seem to be going through the motions today. Rangers were there for the taking. They've done the hard part. They've won the title. They could easily have lost today, but Celtic weren't up for it. Celtic just, apart from a spell in the first half for 15-20 minutes where if they could have got a second goal, they'd probably have won the game, but second half, just both teams were, I don't know what happened to Celtic the second half. Just, there was nobody willing to grab the game by the scruff of the neck and be bold and be brave. See the bravest thing you can do is to want the ball in those situations. That's being brave. That's stepping up to the plate. To want the ball, go and create something, go and do something, make something happen. Too many guys hiding it there, no caring, wanting the end of the season. They don't want it as much as the supporters. But I tell you what, if you got 11 guys from Axom or the crowd, we could have performed better. That meant something today. Show that it means something. Just kind of, well, nobody capable of, breaching that Rangers defence in the second half, and that's absolutely scandalous.
It was certainly a game that seemed to peter out. I mean, you're talking about what is there to play for, as well as the pride, Tony. You've got your Celtic future to play for many of these players, and the coaching staff as well. Because I believe that there's been a decision already made at Celtic, but will John Kennedy, for example, from the coaching team, still be at Celtic in some capacity? You've got to put your own stamp on this side. I don't think that's happened. You were talking there about players wanting to get the ball every opportunity. One player I felt in the midfield who certainly did show up was Turnbull, but again, he's taken off. I wasn't impressed today by the contributions of his contemporaries. I feel that the days of Scott Brown grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck, like you suggest, and even McGregor to a degree, because he's at that stage of his career, I didn't see enough of that. Today. I thought Ryan Christie was fairly anonymous for large spells of the game as well. If I was to take positives from it, I thought actually, strangely enough, I was going to ask the three of you in relation to the loan deals. I think Shane Duffy's a write-off. Nobody's going to expect him to stay. But we did start three of the loanees today. We started off with El Yunusi, John Joe Kenny, and also Laxalt. I actually felt that Laxalt and El Yunusi played pretty well. I'm going to come to yourself, JP. Do you echo what Tony says in relation to that entire performance?
Yeah, I don't take any satisfaction from predicting the scoreline. I was hoping someone was going to prove me wrong in the hoops as the game was sort of petering out. But it didn't seem that way. The second half, if somebody put on the Any Given Sunday speech in the dressing room at half-time, they didn't turn the volume up. And that's what I would say about that, because it's like Tony said, like there was no blood and thunder there. It was just a game. I know it's weird playing in front. That's the second game now I've watched at Celtic Park against them, and it's just absolutely bizarre watching it with no fans. You'll never get away from that. But putting that to one side, this game was all about sort of shutting a few people up and unfortunately, they didn't give us any real reason to do that. I know we probably should have been 2-0 up. Yes, McGregor's made a lot of good saves, and again in the second half. But, you know, it was just the actual play itself wasn't there. It wasn't clicking. There was a lot of times you're just like, these are the same players that played, a lot of the same players that played under Brendan Rodgers and absolutely dismantled teams. And it just seemed like the decision making wasn't there in the same way. You know, little fine details just at the last third of the pitch where they're just not doing the same things that they maybe did a couple of years ago. And that's why we've drawn 1-1.
You're right. I mean, I counted certainly six saves from McGregor. However, some of them, when you're looking at, for example, when McGregor breaks down the left, Callum McGregor, you're looking for the cutback, and there you go. You've got two players waiting for that to happen, but we don't seem to have that cutting edge, JP, whereas in the past it was done without thinking. It was instinctive. It would appear to me, Lawrence Connolly, that there has obviously been a rot set in the Celtic side, and the only way that we can really get back to what we would expect from Celtic is to have this mass exodus of players. I mean, that's what it comes down to. There's players in there who play week in, week out who are part of that issue.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, Rangers got where they came from. They didn't need to put too much in. They got a draw, they're happy, they've preserved their record. Out at Celtic, where was the energy in the team outside of Diego? Did anyone show any energy and desire? And I think it was lacking right throughout it. And it's probably been lacking most of the season. If you get through them 1-11, Diego's probably get past marks at the back. You say, well, Welsh is young, he's not made a mistake. Probably best we can say about the defence or the back four. Into midfield, Turnbull had flashes, I don't know. And then your front two, Elyounoussi showed up well. Outside of that, you can't say too much more positive about it, I thought.
When you're looking at that though, Lawrence, and you're in the dugout, I'm going to come to yourself, Anthony, and you can see that it's fairly uninspiring. The tempo's not there. You don't have that energy. You don't have what you would expect in any game, never mind a derby game. You make the changes. You would expect to make the changes. And I was sitting looking at that after 60 minutes, feeling exactly what Lawrence has just said. And I was thinking, well, you've got to make the change, because it was quite clear we had some joy down the left with Laxalt. I thought that was one of the best performances we've seen from Laxalt, to be fair. Down the right, very little. We had very little down the right. John Joe Kenny, for me, you know, when you look at the club that he's come from, the kind of level that he's played at, I certainly wouldn't be pushing the boat out to bring him in on a permanent basis. We had nothing really down the right. I don't think that Ryan Christie had his finest game in a Celtic jersey either. You're looking up for that kind of link-up play down the right-hand side. We're getting a joy down the left. But at 60 minutes, you put it right. You look at the situation, and there's a couple of different changes you could make to then give you that outlet on the right-hand side. It didn't happen. And then you're looking at some of the other substitutions. Tony, 81 minutes. 87 minutes. You bring on Griffiths and Sorrell. 87 minutes into the game. I mean, it is a collective duty. It's a collective responsibility. When things aren't going right, change it.
Yeah.
Isn't that the whole purpose of having a coaching team on the side of the park who's watching the same game as us?
15 minutes into the second half, it had slowed down to testimonial pace. Right, you're trying to win the game. You're trying to stop Rangers from completing a season unbeaten. Mm-hmm. As Lawrence says, urgency. The manager, the coach should see that. I've said this before. Uninspiring, misfiring, perspiring. Right, that's what was happening in the second half. So you change it. You give it 15 minutes and you think, nah, have to rip this up now, because this game is going to peter out into a 1-1 draw. From the hour mark, you saw that this game was going to finish 1-1. Did you not?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
You were, you don't even be a betting man to say this is finishing 1-1, because as Lawrence rightfully said, Rangers had, their team got what they wanted. They've got a point. It's up to Celtic to, urgency, step it up a gear, go at them. Saw nothing of that. And a management coaching team standing back and watching that. Now, Christie, for all intents and purposes, how he stayed on the park is beyond me. Right? How he stayed on the park is beyond me. He takes Turnbull off. I always think if he keeps Turnbull on, he's liable to do something. right? But he makes his changes. What did you say? 79, 87 and 88. I mean, that's actually insulting to the players that you're bringing on, because you're throwing them on and saying, try and win this for us. Mm-hmm. You're throwing them on and you're not even giving them any coaching. You're just saying, going to go and try and win this for us. He's probably thrown Lee Griffiths on and said, look, first chance you get, just hit it. That'd have been his instructions today to Lee Griffiths. I mean,
and there's so many changes that we make as well, Tony, where it's like for like. So you're expecting, if you take off Edouard and you put on Griffiths, you're expecting Griffiths to do better than Edouard, given the exact same balls, the exact same space, because you're not changing the shape. And the same way Brown off for Sorrow, so Sorrow, it's like for like kind of changes. Can anybody tell me anything Tom Roderick did? Did anyone notice that Tom Roderick was on the park? Because when he comes on in the last 10 minutes, what seriously is he going to do to make a change at this stage of the game? Absolutely zilch. And that's a frustration. It's been a frustration all season. We don't have a plan B. Do we even have a plan A? Because I always felt the style of management that we had under Neil Lennon, JP, I'll come and ask you for your opinion on this. The style of management he had was, I'll pick 11 players and the 11 players will work it out for himself because we've got better players than the opposition. And that's how I felt that he approached this season. We've got much better players than the rest of the league. Therefore, I'll pick the best 11. On you go, guys. And there's actually been comments from players that have played under him at Hibs who said that. You were expected to figure it out for yourself. We've had 2 occasions where Callum McGregor, vice-captain of the club, has come out after poor performances and said we didn't know what the game plan was. I still don't think we know. And we certainly don't know how to change if it's not working.
No, we don't. And I think if you take Ryan Christie, I don't want to go, two-footed on Ryan Christie, but I mean, his performance today in that position for Glasgow Celtic, you're looking for a far, far better return from a player in that position than what you got from him today. I just thought his touch at times was absolutely terrible. Like it was just going away from him every time. Decision making not great. Yes, there was a couple of excellent balls, and that's the flashes that he gives you. And I know that's why you've been a big champion of him. And throughout his time at the club, Paul. But if that's not a guy I want to see playing for Celtic next season, his head's out the door, and his feet need to follow. I did think Laxalt played well. He impressed me more than he has done for a long time. Kenny, if it's the sort of money that's been bandied about, absolutely no chance for that. And I'll be sad to see if that is Eddie's last game against them at Celtic Park. It's a sad way for him to leave, considering what he's done in the past. A few near misses, a yellow card for a supposed dive. It's not really how you want to remember Eddie in these games, is it? Because he's done so much.
Yeah, JP, you mentioned Kenny there, and I must admit I was also disappointed with his performance. I've never actually been blown away with any of his performances, to be fair. I think he's ticked along in many of the games. Of the 4 loanees that we have, all big, expensive players, would you keep any of them? El Yunusi, Duffy, Laxalt and Kenny. Any of those 4 you would keep at Celtic Park next season as part of the rebuild?
No, absolutely not, actually. Laxalt's not going to, win me over from today. I still think we need an imposing, stronger guy playing that position that's got a bit more height. I'm not heightist at all, but I just think, you look at what they have lined up at left back today versus us, and it's a world of a difference, really, isn't it?
What about yourself? There's a couple of heads shaking there, Lawrence. Any of the 4 that have impressed you enough to make those deals permanent?
Listen, there's only 2 that I would say have got a chance, and that's Moya, Elyounoussi and Diego. Elyounoussi shown he's got goals in him. Whether he's going to be consistent enough or desire, I don't know. But he's at 14, 15 goals for the season. Diego always shows energy on the park. Would he be better with a better manager? Well, I think that's what a lot of people have been saying this season. The team would have been better with a better manager. But the other 2, Duffy, we all wanted it to work. It just hasn't, and Kenny's just shown nothing. At least Diego and Moy have shown they have the ability. It's just whether we can harness it to make it more consistent, to fit into a team better, or whether the new manager can do that. But that's the only 2 I would consider out of 4. Yeah, that's it. I mean, Diego's an international left back. We're going to get us better.
Well, the thing for me, I'm going to bring up William Monaghan's point. You're making it on YouTube. Welcome to the show, William. Don't buy the wholesale clear-out requirement. 2 really good players can transform any team. Well, what I would say, William, is let's have a look at the 20 players who are part of Celtic's first team today. And you might be surprised at how many you would allow to go. I mean, Scott Bain has given me nothing that he's going to be a Celtic number one. At 29 years of age, he might feel that he needs to go elsewhere to be that number one elsewhere. He's certainly not a number one for Celtic. And if he was to leave, we've got Hazard as a backup and we bring in a new goalkeeper, I wouldn't be surprised at that. So, there's one player from your defensive line. Kenny, send him back to Everton. I don't think there's any doubts there. Like, Salt's going to go back to AC Milan. Welsh, you're going to keep him because he is part of the future. Ayer will probably leave, and we know that AC Milan are interested. So, back 5, you've got one player, and it's Stephen Welsh, who, last season was playing for Morton. So I think he's done particularly well this season, and I do think he is part of the future planning. But it just shows you there's the defence, 1 from 5. Scott Brown, big question mark over Scott Brown as to whether he's going to be playing next season at Celtic Park. There's already been supposed interest from Stephen Glass if he was to get the job at Aberdeen. Ryan Christie on today's performance, and on many of the performances this season, I'm with JP. And yeah, I have championed him, JP, absolutely. But if his head's out the door, his feet can follow. I like that. McGregor, you would hope, is going to be a player that's going to stick around, and Turnbull has been one of the high points of this season. You look at up front, El Yunusi, he shows flashes, but for the price that you're paying year on year for a loan deal, plus all his wages, he's going to go back to Southampton, and Eddie is on his way as well. So from the starting 11, you've got Turnbull, McGregor and Welsh with a question mark around Brown. That's before you go on to the bench. Barkas, do you cut your losses? Potentially, especially if you get an offer of a better goalkeeper coming in. Taylor might be the first choice left back next season. Duffy's on his way out. Beaton potentially on his way out. Griffiths, there's a question mark around Griffiths with a year left on his contract. Klamala has done nothing since he came to Celtic to suggest that he's our number 9. Sorrow, yes, I'd keep Sorrow. Rogic can go. And finally Forrest, I'd keep him. So from a squad of 20, there's a handful of players. There are wholesale changes required at Celtic Park. And that's before you look at the wider squad, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, the guy that emailed in, the 2 players can transform a squad. Yeah, Brian, name them.
He's got a point. Look when Rodgers came in, when even Steen came in. Steen only said what he was.
Yeah, I know that.
It depends on the quality of manager we're going to get in. It's going to have a big factor on it, isn't it? So,
I get that, Lawrence, totally, right, but that team needs gutted, as we've just gone through it, really. We talked about in the first half, after the first half, that we need 2 imposing centre-backs. That, need a new goalkeeper, we need 2 midfielders, possibly 2 strikers. That's 7 players. That's 7, right? Just off the top of my head, right? So, whoever's coming in, there is a big, major rebuilding job going on here. And also you need, if that's the basic guys you're bringing 7, you need that team to gel and you need to hit the ground running. And there's so many variables in this that it's actually becoming a worrying trend now, because there's nothing there today to suggest that there's hope moving forward. And obviously you've got your new management structure coming in as well, so you have to hope that, as you say, they have a Brendan Rodgers type transformation.
I would hope the new manager gets the money to keep Ayer. Laxalt was the best player today. So you could be looking and going, actually, well, you keep Welsh, Ayer and Laxalt out of it. I think keeper, we all know keeper needs addressed, it's been a weakness. Without, Kenny's gone, Brown's time's up, but you've got McGregor, Sorrell, Turnbull. Managers got to tune out of Christie. It was a really poor performance today. Whether a new manager would revitalise him, who knows?
I'm not disagreeing, Lawrence, but I'm just saying you look at that team, but it needs major surgery. It does. It does.
You see the point you made, though, Lawrence? I'll go back to the point that you made in relation to when Jock Stein came in 1965 and then Brendan Rodgers came in. I think we are in a slightly different situation in that we're falling off the edge of a cliff. So although we've had the unprecedented success, and I would never ever take away from the fact that we've won 9 in a row and 4 trebles in a row, there's too many of these players that are coming to the end of their Celtic cycle. I mean, when Jock Stein came in, it was a different scenario because he had coached many of those Lisbon who would go on to become Lisbon Lions when they're reserve team players. He was a reserve team coach. He should never have been allowed to leave Celtic, but we allowed him to go because there was a bit of politics there. But he knew that he could shift a few of these guys around in terms of their position and get the best out of others. And with a few signings to complement that, he built an incredible side. Rodgers, again, he inherited a squad that I don't think was coming to the end of their cycle in the same kind of level that we've got now. He was able to get the best out of players that now, all these years later, we can't. I mean, Scott Brown being the talisman of Rodgers' side, a massive part of that. He's not going to be that man for the new incoming gaffer. And I just think that there's so many players. I think it's optimistic to think that Ayer's going to stick around. Not his best game today, but he's one guy that, regardless of whether or not he wants to leave, he's not been, like JP says, Christie's been head elsewhere. Eddie's head's been elsewhere all season as well. I don't think Ayers has, of the three, I'd keep Ayer. I'd keep Ayer over Eddie. I'd keep Ayer over Christie, based on this season and the fact that we need that stability. I mean, there was one point today that I was thinking maybe he's an option on the right back, galloping down the right, maybe with Forrest in front of him to breach that left-hand side of the Rangers defence. Does that even, go through the heads of the Celtic coaching staff? I don't know. It seems to be very safe in terms of the like-for-like changes. Somebody's saying here, Turnbull and Rogic, 2 wages to get 1 game. It seems like that at times. JP, I mean, Rogic's wages, he got a bumper deal. He's on 20 grand plus a week. He comes in, he's got that languid style about him, doesn't look as though he's interested half the time. 7 or 8 minutes. That's not what we're paying for here. He's only 28 years of age. He comes on that part looking like he's 34.
I think of like Prozinetsky with the smoking facts. But he's not quite there yet, and I doubt he smokes either. But no, it's like you said when you're like, oh, what can Rogic do when he comes on? I know that it only takes a few seconds to do something magical in the ball, but I mean, to expect Rogic to do something, especially the current version of Tom Rogic to do anything right now in a game is probably asking so much. And I as much as it was part of me going, wow, has he got another, Hampden finale goal in him? I just know that he's not, and it's a combination of many things. The amount of time he spent at the club, the fact that he was nearly out the door, the fact that we're playing the way we're playing, it's not ideal circumstances for Tom Rogic to do what he's good at, and I don't think we'll ever see that again, unfortunately. And just before I forget, I did look at half time to see what happened. You probably know this. I'm not going to be disrespectful with regards to your ages, but when Celtic lost the league and Rangers stopped 10 in a row in 1975,
yes,
Celtic won the Scottish Cup and the League Cup, but finished 11 points behind Rangers and finished third actually behind Hibs. I ashamedly didn't know that until there just now, but there you go. They still won 2 cups, so they didn't. It's not as if they just completely fell off the cliff like we've done this.
No, you're right, but check it as well, JP. I'm pretty sure they won the Glasgow Cup and the Drybrook Cup as well. Yeah, because Paul Wilson scored in every cup final.
Yeah,
scored in 4 cup finals in Scotland, so we won a quadruple.
But it just shows you it's not as dramatic as what's happened this season, where we've just capitulated in the league, bounced out the League Cup. I think we got knocked out in the first round of the European Cup, if I remember looking at the wiki stats. Somebody will know in the comments, no doubt. But so didn't do too well in Europe that season either.
See, the big thing for me, we've already mentioned them, and it's not through these misty eyes of looking back and thinking, wow, I wish I still had them. But one example of being able to make a change during a game would be Brendan Rodgers. He was a master at that. I've seen it so often. I remember at Ibrox where Simonovic gets sent off and he brings on a forward and he makes that change, and you look at Graham Murray and he's doing that thing like that and he's telling everybody to start breathing. which is bizarre. But Brendan Rodgers had that tactical ability to do that. And again, it's maybe being harsh on Kennedy. He's been thrown into the situation. But he does seem to just be following the same kind of type as we have done all season with the safe substitutions, Tony, afraid to make the big decisions. I'd be going all out for a win here. Was he just hoping not to get beat between the Aberdeen game and the end of the season? You've got to go out and get the win. You've got to be decisive.
I just didn't see what the game plan was from Celtic today, to be honest. Didn't seem to be real, any kind of method, any structure. It was just, not even up and at them and have a right good go at them, go for their throats or whatever. Did nothing like that. Just gutless, to be honest. I find gutless performance with the odd sprinkling of somebody having a decent game. Welsh, black salt, as Lawrence Connolly said, and El Yunusi for maybe 25 minutes. And that was it. I mean, that was all we got today. I get back to that. This season's been a complete and utter write-off. We get that. But I'm actually worried about next season, because next season it's important that you win the league, because you're automatically into the Champions League group stages when you win the league next season. And Celtic are a million miles away from that at this particular juncture. And that is a major concern.
But you raised that a couple of weeks ago, Tony.
I know.
I heard you saying it. You had the actual days lined out. Was it 100 days before the first game?
Significantly less than that now.
I know.
We're within 90 days of the Champions League qualifiers, right? We don't have a management structure in place, and we have a team that's going to be obliterated by the looks and sounds of it. And nobody has come out from the club to say, here's what's happening. 90 days before we play whoever it is. And remember, we're not in the Champions route, so our route's going to be circuitous and hazardous to get there. And we're no further forward than when we were when Neil Lennon left the club.
No, you're right, and this is a problem. We've seen the plaudits going out to Aberdeen for the communication, the engagement. We don't have any of that, even though they've got all the ability to do it and all the technical nous to do it at their fingertips, but they don't do it. Lawrence, where are you in relation, Lawrence Connolly, to making that change? If we're in discussions with the management team, I mean, there's a strong rumour that it's Harkin and Maresca. Is that going to do anything to keep players such as Ayer? You think Ayer might stay? I would agree with you, Lawrence, if we had a structure that the club knew was in place, and it was going to be a structure where you look at someone, and I'm going to use a name because obviously we're emailing back and forward, Ralf Rangnick, right, who's probably going to be the next Germany manager. But if you had that in place and you're a young aspiring player, he could convince you to stay for another season or two.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think Harkin and Maresca will, though.
I think Celtic have decided upon the structure, although they've not communicated it. The rumours are, Harkin's a done deal. And if it's Harkin and Maresca, or I doubt it would be Harkin, Keenan, Maresca. But, if you could sit and say to a player, look, this is how much we're going to spend on the team. This is the management team. This is the structure. This is how it's going to work. And this is what's going to be different. And this is how it will benefit you. It's a lot better than kind of the non-communication than we get for the club. But, come back to John Kennedy not making big decisions. Well, half-time's always a big decision. You've got to sit, look, we've lost a goal. Who's playing well? Who's playing bad? How can I make a difference? Everybody's got to ask themselves, no matter what your job is, how can I make a difference here? And if your difference is, well, I'm not doing any subs, I'm not doing anything, I'm not changing anything. It's an indictment on the squad of a belief he's got on the players that are on the bench.
I think it is.
There's players that weren't performing today. Christie being one of them.
I think it is, though, Lawrence. I mean, we've painted ourselves into a corner here. If you're sitting there at half-time, disgusted as we were with the goal that we conceded, right? What centre-half can you bring on? Duffy or Beaton? No, thanks. You're looking up front, you're thinking, I need to make a change up there. How many times has Griffiths got us out of jail this season? Not that often. We bang on about his 40 goals that he scored in a season. That was 5 years ago now. He's averaging 24 or 25 games a season over the last 3 seasons. So we just don't have that depth of squad that we thought we had. When you're looking to the bench, who's going to come in and make a big change?
Could have brought Forrest on at half-time.
But then,
he's got it in him. We knew we were getting nothing down the right. We knew that was a part of the team that's performing badly. There's your chance. A guy that's done in big games, bring him on. And when the subs, if we thought Lenny left the subs late, it's like, Tony's touched on it. What were you doing with 3 minutes to go? Really, it's kind of, I don't know if any of you ever played Sunday League or whatever, but it's almost as if you're getting brought on so you don't feel left out after the game kind of thing with 3 minutes to go, isn't it? Or going to part today. 3 minutes, really.
If you're throwing someone on at that stage and there's an increase in the tempo, if you've changed the shape of the side, I get it. But it's a like-for-like change. Eddie off for Griff, Brown off for Sorrow, 87 minutes. What change, what difference is that going to make? Tony?
I said a couple of weeks ago that a major part of your resource for the rebuild had to be to bring in a top-level manager. Now, if the rumours are true and it's Harkin and Maresca, wow, we're talking a project again. Celtic can't afford another project. And I'm going to bang on about it. He can be the best under-23 coach the world's ever seen with the world's richest club. He's not managed at a professional level. He's been assistant coach a couple of places, but he's not been in sole control. And for a guy who's, if it is Maresca, and he lands this job, his first job should not be Glasgow Celtic. I'm sorry. It's not. We cannot go down that route. Well, maybe we are going to go down that route if the rumours are to be true. But if they do, then honest to goodness, I mean, that's a name that season ticket holders will not buy into that either. You have to get on board. You have to capture the imagination with the managerial appointment. And I'm sorry, but it doesn't capture my imagination. Might be in a minority, but I don't think I will be.
Tony, I think I agree with you to an extent because, yeah, I totally. If you take a step back and look at it, Celtic fans are going to look at that and just be like, "Never heard of this guy. Why are we not getting a quote unquote big name?" But I think you saw with Jesse Marsh ruling himself out, whether he has or hasn't ruled himself out of the job. We're not going to get a Jesse Marsh at this point, and we're not going to get a Ralph Rangnick. Clearly,
and I get that, JP, right? But we go and get the highest calibre of manager that we can possibly get. Yeah, we go and get the highest and the best. That's what I'm talking about. Is Enzo Maresca the best? I don't know. 12 months you're on this platform eating humble pie and saying, well, I called it wrong. But you cannot fail to be the best under 23 manager with the richest club in the world. I'm sorry, you can't fail, right? And if you do fail, then you're not a manager, right? People say, no, he's scudding teams 7 and 8-1. I don't care. It's under 23 football. I don't care. It's not professional football. You know what I mean? It's not senior men's football. So, that's the way
I think the key thing could potentially be not necessarily who becomes a manager, and if it's Enzo Maresca, it's more about who he brings in as his team, because we've seen with Gerrard that Michael Beale's the sort of the chosen one, so to speak. So he's not. Nobody knew who he was. Everybody knew who Steven Gerrard was, but
it took them 3 years to get it right. Have Celtic got 3 years to try and get it right?
Well,
I don't think we do, Tony. I don't think we do.
Celtic want to wrestle that title back this time next year. That's the state of play, and see if they're not thinking like that. Well, they should be, And I just find if they're going to appoint that kind of management team, then you're taking a gamble. It's a huge risk.
Mm-hmm.
Massive risk.
It's an absolute throw of the dice. I know it is, but we've been talking a lot about finding another mini-me of Ralph Rangnick. What if Enzo Maresca is a mini-me, not of necessarily Ralph Rangnick because he's not worked with him, but what if he's a guy that's like about to, blow up, which is what we thought was going to happen with Ronnie Dyler. It's not. He's now at New York, in New York, but I don't know. I just don't know what the other options are. Eddie Howe would be my choice if you were going to go for the established manager.
See, the problem, JP, we had a great discussion probably about a month ago actually about Harkin and Maresca, and we were looking at the pros and cons of it. I think the timing is the problem. If we were sitting here having 3 or 4 league titles in the bag at the time of the Ronnie Dyler appointment, and this was being spoken about and you would think, well, we're building for the future, that would have negated all the criticisms we've just had about the fact that we have nothing underneath the surface of the first team, because it would have been that long-term plan back then. Having lost the league, it probably will go down like a lead balloon, because it's not as though we're just looking for the short-termism of the big name, Tony. You know, you want the big name because of what they can do as a coach. And it's not just because they've got a high profile. Otherwise, you would accept Keane, which I wouldn't have. As I've said before, I wouldn't have him. He's not in my top list of candidates, nowhere near it. But the big name comes with the caveat that he's also a successful coach. The big issue with me, with a lot of the names that have been mentioned, is they're going to be getting snapped up left, right and centre between now and the end of the season down in England, aren't they? Because there's going to be managerial casualties down there, as there always is. But I just think the timing of it is going to be the big difficulty for Celtic. I think it's good that we're trying to build something, but Tony, as you say, we need it now. The time is now. It's not, let's build something for 3 years from now. We should have been doing this years ago. That should have been the type of appointment that we made around about the Ronnie Deila time.
They should have secured the 10, and then when this managerial departure with this director of football and a head coach underneath them, but they should have secured the 10 first, and then the fans would have accepted that, no bother. I think it's a bit unpalatable now, because they've blown that, and now they're thinking, oh no, we're taking... Because it's a risk. And I don't have a downer on Enzo Maresca. He's just not got any managerial record to base being the Celtic manager on, and he might well be a messiah. And I said, if it is Maresca in a year's time Celtic win the title, I'll be the first to congratulate him. I'll get behind it, but I'm pessimistic about it. I have to say it, and I'm very sceptical about it. Mm-hmm. And just because these guys come from Man City and they know this and they know that, do they know Scottish football? Do they know what Celtic need? Do they know what Celtic needs? And you hope that Celtic are doing their due diligence, and that these guys maybe are in place and working behind the scenes, and all of a sudden they'll get unveiled and it'll be bang, bang, bang. That's what you hope. But at this moment in time, the club doesn't give you any kind of hope going forward. You are following blind faith. There's blind optimism here. Just hoping that they get it right.
These bulletins, Tony, are great because they're a moment in time, and you can go through this season and there's loads of them. JP's smiling because I think he knows what's coming. There's loads of them where you can say, I told you so, because I said that on August the 19th bulletin. But similarly, there's loads where you speak about Duffy when he signs, you speak about Ajeti being the best signing in the transfer window, and you're made to look a bit foolish. I'm hoping we look back on today's bulletin and we say, look how downbeat we were that day. Look how negative we were all thinking, because that's where we are at this moment in time, and hopefully the club can do something to wash all of that away. We're talking in different tones in a couple of months' time. It's always an absolute pleasure. What a dream team we've had today with Lawrence Connolly, JP Mason and Anthony Haggerty, and I'll see all you guys during the week on your respective days on the Axon Bulletin. Thank you to everybody for joining us on Facebook, Twitter and on YouTube. If you haven't already done so, get yourself subscribing to the YouTube channel. It's a state of mind. We now have 17 different shows on there, including things like Screamer Celica with Boise and Kevin, the Soccer Supernova. Oh, it's always great on a Tuesday night, JP. Soccer Supernova with Amy Canavan. She'll be back on tonight. And various other shows from faces that you might recognise from Axom and others as well. So thanks again, everybody. Your support is appreciated, and we'll see you again at 12:30 for a Celtic State of Mind.